In the quiet suburbs, in one of the most breathtaking places on Earth, the unthinkable is about to happen. A young woman is about to be abducted in broad daylight.
People always want to think that everyone's like them and that they wouldn't harm another individual, but you always have to be aware that there are those around who are not like you and that do wish to do harm.
Everyone thinks they're safe in paradise, but that couldn't be farther from the truth.
It's that one person with that one piece of evidence that can often break a case wide open.
Police race to find the missing woman, but soon discovered that this is more than just an abduction. It's a crime that will linger on in the minds of all those involved for years to come. The islands of Hawaii have been described as heaven on earth, and one look at the North Shore on Oahu is all the proof one needs.
Hawaii is a paradise in the Pacific. It's mountains, it's volcanoes, it's palm trees.
Hawaii's North Shore is home to some of the biggest waves, swelling up to between 50 and 100 feet.
There are really countless reasons why Hawaii is such a destination. Geographically, it's located in a place where people can come from all over the world to experience it. Temperature there, the climate is ideal, really. It rarely fluctuates.
Well, when I think of Hawaii and its weather, it's light rain overnight and warm and sunny the next day, every day.
Nestled amongst luscious green forest and a sparkling blue sea is a small community of Pupukea, which translates to white shell. With a population of over 5,000 residents, it's the perfect resting spot for thrill seekers and sunbathers alike, where tourists and locals can spend their days relaxing by swimming in the deep, beautiful ocean or relaxing on one of its many sandy beaches. 21-year-old Masumi Watanabe arrives in Pupukea in February 2007 with her eyes full of stars. The young woman is staying with family friends after visiting the island briefly that past September and falling in love with it.
It's easy to see why Masumi falls in love with the island. It's paradise.
Hawaii is a very sought-after vacation spot, and especially for somebody like Masumi, who loves to draw, she loves being outdoors, she loves the sights.
Masumi is really an introvert, but that doesn't mean she's not interested in adventure. There's so much to offer her in Hawaii that she wants to do everything.
The decision to stay in Hawaii for 2 months is one that makes her parents, Hideichi and Fumiku Watanabe, nervous. Born and raised in Sado Island, Japan, Masumi dreams of independence. With 2 older brothers, she's the baby of the family. Putting their reservations aside, her parents want their only daughter to follow her heart and are supportive of her journey. Still, they look forward to the day when Masumi comes back home.
Her parents adore her. Of course they want her to do what makes her happy, but an extra 2 months in Hawaii does start to make them nervous.
Tourists are vulnerable. They're in a foreign place. They don't necessarily know where they're going. They don't necessarily look over their shoulder like they might do at home. They're unaware of their surroundings. They're unaware of the dangers that they may face in a foreign place.
Masumi spends some of her free time volunteering in the library of a nearby school, where she interacts with the students and practices her English language skills. She also takes in the perks of the library, checking out as many romance novels that she can get her hands on.
She's shy and reserved. In her spare time, she likes to listen to music, read, and watch Spider-Man movies.
Masumi is a gentle, sensitive soul, one who expresses herself through her drawings. She loves to sketch animals, particularly dogs, but draws whatever comes to her as inspiration. And the island of Oahu provides limitless possibilities. With only a week left in her trip, Masumi spends her days taking in as much as she can while planning her return to paradise. She feels like she's found a home here in Oahu. This could be the place where she finds herself, where she becomes the woman she's meant to be.
Masumi is excited about the future. Now that she has her independence, she knows she can do anything that she wants.
She was staying with family and friends who lived down a long, winding road in a residential area.
Masumi enjoyed taking walks and noticing the sights and the animals and plants and things like this. So on this particular day, her friend dropped her off at the bottom of the hill. She was planning to enjoy a nice, peaceful walk home.
Well, if you are traveling in a foreign country, I think it's very important to let your family and friends know where you are, especially if you intend on wandering off the beaten path, going where tourists don't normally go. I think it's very important to let family and friends know exactly where you are and exactly when you're going to be there.
It's a beautiful road to travel, green and lush, very scenic. It's no wonder why she likes it.
The area where Masumi was dropped off by her friends wasn't exactly remote. There would have been traffic and there would have been partially paved roads, and maybe some were gravel, but often in Hawaii there's drainage ditches rather than sidewalks at the side of the roads. But there would have been traffic at a fairly steady rate.
While being a cautious visitor and keeping her excursions limited to daytime, Masumi feels safe in her home away from home. But danger can strike when one least expects it. And Masumi is about to find herself in a terrifying situation. An unknown vehicle starts to follow her.
When you're on vacation, typically you're trying to relax. You're not necessarily paying attention to the dangers around you or the things that may pose a danger to you.
Once Masumi realizes what's happening, the driver emerges from the vehicle, persuading the young woman to come with him. Masumi, though her English is limited, repeats one word over and over again: no. But her words do little to convince the stranger otherwise.
She's a smart traveler. She pays attention to her surroundings. She does everything right. She never had any inkling what awaited her on the road that morning.
In a matter of seconds, Masumi Watanabe is taken against her will.
For most people, the natural fight or flight mentality kicks in, and you want to get away, and you will fight to get away.
And the young woman's dreams of her future are about to be washed away forever. In the tropical paradise of Oahu, Hawaii, 21-year-old Masumi Watanabe has left her home in Sado Island, Japan, for a 2-month sojourn of self-discovery. While staying on the island with family friends, Masumi hopes to find her independence and come out of her shell. She dreams of one day having her own apartment and buying her own vehicle, and her family in Japan is nothing less than supportive.
Masumi's the baby of the family, and of course her parents are worried for her, but they also want her to explore the world and do whatever it is that makes her happy.
While on her trip, she sets a schedule to bring a sense of normalcy to her life. She volunteers in the library of a school to meet new people and practice her English. And most mornings, she gets dropped off at the bottom of a road where she's staying so she can walk back to the house for exercise.
Masumi's dedicated and hardworking. Usually whatever she sets her mind to, she achieves.
With only 1 week left in her trip, Masumi is taking in the island with every chance she gets.
So she was focused on looking for places where she could sketch. She enjoyed the scenery, she enjoyed sketching animals, and wasn't probably thinking about the fact that there might be people around who didn't have good intentions.
But little does she know, this morning is about to end in tragedy.
Kidnappings are very rare. Abductions, not so much, because an abduction is something that takes place typically between people who know each other. It's usually a situation where there's no violence involved, whereas a kidnapping, on the other hand, is done between two people who typically don't know each other, and it's usually involving a violent altercation. She's not someone that would typically be at high risk of kidnapping.
Broad daylight abductions that are completely random are honestly quite rare.
You think you're safe in the daylight, but the truth is, these things can happen at any time.
That evening, when Masumi doesn't return home, her friend contacts the police and reports her missing, fearing the worst, but hoping for the best.
At this point, the family expects to hear from their daughter. They just assume that maybe she got lost or injured in some way. They never suspect it's going to be anything more than that.
News of Masumi's disappearance spreads quickly across Oahu, and the entire island is soon on the lookout for the young woman, who's described as a mere 5 feet tall and approximately 100 pounds.
The fact that she was a foreigner and didn't speak English well could be a complicating factor. However, she did have family and friends that lived on the island.
As with any major crime, time is of the essence. Police race over to the house where Masumi's staying in hopes that they may discover clues into her whereabouts or who may have taken her.
Missing persons cases are very time sensitive. You really need to hit the ground running because time is of the essence in a missing persons case. In those first few hours, you need to collect so much information about the person, about the places, who has last seen them, where were they prior to going missing, what were they doing. A short time later, investigators return to the place Masumi is staying to begin the task of collecting DNA evidence from her personal items. Back in 2007, it could take up to 30 days to get DNA evidence back or get a DNA profile back. It's not like it is today where we can turn around DNA evidence much quicker.
A sweep of her bedroom reveals nothing out of the ordinary for a young woman like Masumi. Her luggage is out, ready to be filled with clothes and memories from her 2-month vacation. Her return ticket home printed. She was only 7 days away from returning home to Japan.
The timing couldn't be more tragic. One thing is for sure, the police really need to find Masumi soon. The quicker they find her and resolve this case, the greater the chance that she'll be found alive.
At the onset of an investigation, the police will typically speak to friends and family of the missing person to try and find out what their habits are. Some people are, in fact, more predisposed to adventuring off on their own on a regular basis, while other people keep a very strict schedule. When someone's traveling alone in a foreign country, it's very difficult to establish a pattern of where they may have been on a daily basis. Most people who travel alone are fairly adventurous people to begin with.
The first 72 hours is critical. If you don't find somebody in that amount of time, the chances that something bad has happened increase a lot. And if they were injured, even if by accident, the chances of finding them alive are dropping rapidly.
As luck would have it, it isn't long before putting out the call that the first eyewitness report comes in.
When a witness comes forward to the police and says, "I saw something," there's now an onus on the police to corroborate that evidence. In a case where there's a lack of corroborative evidence, eyewitness accounts are at times problematic.
One eyewitness reported seeing a man coaxing what seemed to be a reluctant young lady to get into the truck, and her shouting, "No, no," and being more forcefully than invited into the truck.
The witness recounts in this case clearly show that she was actively resisting, even though her English was poor.
Until the vehicle and the driver are found, police can only speculate what may have transpired. But given the facts so far, it appears to be an abduction. The question is now, where is the driver? And more pressing, where is Masumi? As the search for a white pickup truck gets underway on an island that could contain hundreds, if not thousands of them, police hold their breath, wondering if their streak of luck will continue.
Databases can be of great interest to police. However, if you only have a white truck, you're going to be going down a very long road.
But it just so happens that another witness comes forward, one with information that could break the case wide open. The second witness describes a scene similar to the first, but with one major revelation. The white pickup truck has a company logo on it.
The first eyewitness doesn't notice the decal on the side of the truck. They just notice that it's a white truck. It's the second witness that comes forward that indicates there's a decal on the side of the truck that is easily recognizable as a pest control company.
So it makes it quite a bit easier to narrow down the suspects when a vehicle like that's been spotted.
People see things differently from different angles and from different distances, and what one person sees may be slightly different to what another person sees, and that's okay. That's to be expected. Typically, the more witness evidence you have in a case, the better off you are.
But is this new information enough to find Masumi in time? Or are police already too late?
After a case like this has left the public eye, and it's no longer in the news cycle, what people don't understand is that unsolved cases can go on for years. It doesn't mean the police have stopped.
21-year-old Japan native Masumi Watanabe is finding her voice on the island paradise of Oahu. But her last week of a 2-month sojourn is thrown into chaos when Masumi is abducted in broad daylight. Reported missing, the hunt for Masumi rages across the island, and it isn't long before witnesses come forward with case-breaking information. Two witnesses both place a white pickup truck near Masumi around 9:30 the morning of her disappearance, and one of the witnesses has investigators' best lead to date. They identify the truck as belonging to a local pest control business.
What would go through my mind is that, a kidnapping is very bold. And I guess I'd be thinking to myself, this is not likely the first criminal activity this individual has been engaged in. What have they done previously that has led to this point? It seems to me that this was impulsive. It wasn't likely well planned out or well thought out.
There were two individuals who witnessed the white truck and conversation between Masumi and a gentleman, but their stories didn't quite match.
Investigators contact the business and discover that 22-year-old technician Kirk Matthew Langford was on a call in the area around the time of Masumi's disappearance. But Langford denies seeing Masumi or knowing anything on her whereabouts. With nothing solid to act upon at this time, police continue their search, but ask Langford to reach out if he remembers anything that could be of use.
So since the truck was so easily found, having the pest control logo on it, the police were able to track down the technician that had been driving using the truck at that period of time.
He admits to being the driver of the vehicle and being on patrol in that area for the company at the time she goes missing.
That technician, Langford, initially denied even seeing her on the road as he drove.
It's very common to come across your suspect and not know it. Very common. It's not a situation where you're necessarily going to be delicate. Someone is missing. We're talking about a human life. You need to get as deep as possible when interviewing family and friends. You want to know all the intricate details. You don't want any stone left unturned.
3 days after Masumi's disappearance, police collect some of the young woman's personal belongings in hopes that her DNA may tell them something that they're missing. They also make note of her glasses. She suffers from both myopia and astigmatism, both of which require a strong prescription.
In the case of a disappearance, you don't have any physical record of that person. So if you do find evidence elsewhere, in a suspicious site or whatever, you need to have something to compare. So we would collect in advance. Often there is hair in a hairbrush. There might be traces of DNA on a toothbrush, any clothing that's recently worn, things like that. We can get a little bit of DNA from, and that way if we find possible DNA containing bits here and there elsewhere where we're searching, we can compare the two and find out exactly whether it's the same person or not. You don't need very much of a sample to get DNA from things you might find around the house. Like even something as simple as a tissue that the person might have coughed, expectorated into, you can get DNA off that.
Now beyond the 72-hour mark, the case begins to turn cold. Investigators begin to fear that this is no longer a missing persons case, but a homicide investigation.
Could she have gotten a ride and gotten dropped off? Could she have lost her way? Or maybe someone knows something and hasn't come forward yet.
When a third witness comes forward, investigators wonder if their account will be more of the same. They soon discover it's anything but.
Eventually, a third witness comes forward stating that they had seen a man digging in a sandy, muddy area. This man also had a white truck. The person was curious as to why someone would be digging at night and asked the gentleman what he was up to. Langford's explanation was he was looking for a lost necklace. Now, the witness thought that was rather suspicious since it was nighttime. Probably not the best time to be looking, and a shovel isn't maybe the best implement to use when you're looking for a lost necklace either. So this witness was so confused and concerned about this that they actually took down the license plate number, which ended up helping the police.
You know, there are many occasions where one person brings forward information that sort of ties everything together.
With this license plate number, police are able to trace it to a local residence. There, a pregnant woman answers, unsure why police are at her house. Her husband approaches the door, wondering about the commotion.
Once the police got the license plate number from the third witness regarding the person digging in the middle of the night, they were able to track down the owner of that vehicle, Kirk Langford. very coincidental that he was also the person seen driving the work truck on the day that Masumi disappeared.
Hawaiian authorities put out a call to find missing 21-year-old Masumi Watanabe after she fails to return home to her friend's house one warm April evening. Luckily for police, several witnesses come forward with strong information, including one who sees the name of a local pest control business on the side of the truck that Masumi is last seen getting into. The truck leads them to a 22-year-old pest control technician, Kirk Matthew Langford, who denies knowing Masumi or seeing anything suspicious the morning of her disappearance.
So we have a third witness that comes forward with some very interesting evidence. Our witness is walking in the evening down by a pond when he sees someone digging. When he approaches that individual and asks them what they're doing, because it strikes him as being quite odd, the man says that he's digging for a necklace. Our witness then thinks it's a little bit bizarre and decides to take down the man's license plate number as he's leaving.
That simple act of taking down the number changes everything in this case.
And when police track the plate number, it leads them straight to the house of Kirk Matthew Langford. When police arrive at Mr. Langford's residence, they note both the work truck, which had been seen before, and a personal vehicle.
When Mr. Langford indicates that he's in the area, it's something of particular note, certainly for the police. But at that point, it's not enough evidence to make an arrest.
Luckily for the police, there were outstanding warrants for traffic violations regarding Kirk Langford, and they were able to bring both vehicles in for inspection after they discovered that they both belonged to the same person.
Let's be clear, some criminals commit crimes with the intention of getting caught. I think in this case, this is a situation where he's not intending to be caught, doesn't want to be caught. A lot of effort would have gone into disposing of her remains. There's all kinds of forensic evidence left behind when you have someone in your custody, in your vehicle. Getting rid of that is nearly impossible.
While the collection of potential evidence begins, police interrogate Langford. But the man refuses to speak, and when he does open his mouth, it's only to say he wants an attorney.
When somebody being interviewed regarding their involvement or potential involvement in an occurrence demands to have a lawyer and refuses to answer any other questions, it certainly raises suspicions.
The traffic warrant is not enough to keep him in custody. Police have no choice but to let Langford walk free.
It's hard to imagine what the family must be going through. The one person who could know something isn't talking, which leaves them wondering if their daughter is alive or not.
Having to watch Mr. Langford walk out the front door is difficult, but it's part of the process. And you know in the back of your mind that this isn't over for Mr. Langford.
Langford's work truck, the pest control vehicle, was a treasure trove of physical evidence, and basically all the police needed to link Masumi to him. They found blood on the door handle, a cracked windshield, and the most damning evidence was her own personal glasses, easily traceable by her prescription back to her on the floor of the truck.
The DNA proves, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that Masumi was in that truck on that day. It's unquestionable at this point.
With all this incriminating evidence, the outcome of finding Masumi alive is no longer possible. Authorities officially declare they're now investigating her murder.
When there's a vehicle involved in a crime or suspected of being involved in a crime, there are so many possibilities. so many things that can be found in, around, on a vehicle that can tell you a story. Taking a picture of it, you can recognize if there's been damage to the outside of the vehicle, if something has scratched it or come in contact with it in any kind of a harsh manner. You can usually see scrapes or cracks, things like that. On the inside, there's a lot more things that'll tell you a story. Anywhere from somebody stepping into that vehicle with mud on their shoes. There can be mud, sand, gravel in the carpet. There can be articles that are left behind, personal items. You can tell by old receipts that might be in the truck where the driver or any people that have been passengers in that vehicle may have been. There can be hair samples. People are shedding hair constantly. There might be, if there was a bit of a struggle or anything untoward happening, there might even be blood samples here and there, especially on door handles or anywhere where people might come in contact with a sharp surface in the truck itself.
Everyone tries to remain positive as long as they can, but this news is absolutely devastating.
On April 26, 2007, 14 days after Masumi Watanabe's disappearance, police arrest Langford at his home on suspicion of second-degree murder by commission and omission.
Commission and omission relates to the fact that he had the ability to give her or take her to a medical care facility, yet he chose not to. It's very satisfying as an investigator to walk up to that door and put the handcuffs on someone that you know has committed a crime like this.
With the suspect in custody, the question now becomes, where is Masumi's body?
When Langford's brought in for interrogation, he eventually breaks down and admits that he did in fact see Masumi along the road, but his claim is that he actually accidentally struck her with his vehicle, which resulted in a few minor injuries, scratches and such on her forearms, and that he had attempted to give her a ride.
Which she apparently accepts and asks that she doesn't report the accident.
If there's been a struggle between two people and one person ends up with scratch marks across their face, that means that the fingernails of the other person have torn their tissue away. So when we do find the victim eventually, and if they're deceased, they don't need to tell us the person that attacked them, and collect dead skin cells from under that person's fingernails that can actually give us DNA evidence and link us to the person that attacked them.
Langford tells police that he didn't want his employer to find out about the accident. He'd been disciplined prior for poor driving and feared any further transgressions would cost him his job. The two take off, and as they drive, communication becomes a barrier. Langford claims Masumi's English is difficult to understand. He tries to calm her, to tell her that he's taking her home, but the young woman grows frustrated and afraid. Then, as Langford's driving at approximately 40 miles per hour, Masumi opens the passenger door and dives out of the truck.
For Masumi to use her bloodied arm to open the door and jump out at 40 miles an hour is truly an act of desperation. She was trying to get away from this guy.
He immediately stops the vehicle, but it's too late. He finds Masumi on the side of the road, claiming she hit her head during the fall and that the head wound is fatal.
Realizing that Masumi was dead and not being able to dispose of her body right away, in a final act of callousness, Langford claims he put her body in the back of his work truck and left her there for the rest of the day while he continued about his business.
He went to work as if nothing was wrong, as if he didn't have her body hidden in the back of his truck.
After finishing his shift, he returns to his office, where he cleans some of the blood from the inside of his work truck. He then heads home in his personal vehicle, leaving Masumi's body behind.
It's a little bit unlikely that transferring her body to the box of the truck would result in no DNA evidence in the back of the truck. If she's bleeding or has torn clothing or hairs that have been dislodged slightly, you're going to find something in the box of the truck in most cases.
He spends the evening with his family and then leaves as if he has to go to another job. But what he really does is go to the hardware store to get supplies. He then moves Masumi's body from his work truck into his personal vehicle with the intent to get rid of her.
I think in this situation, he would have panicked. He would have panicked and he would have had to formulate a plan. So I think he would have likely disposed of her remains very quickly.
Langford then states he wrapped Masumi's body in a plastic bag and drives to a secluded area near a fish pond, where he attempts to dig a grave to bury her body. But he's interrupted by the third witness, who takes down his license plate number. In a panic, he flees. With his plan thwarted, Langford claims to have taken her body to the sea, letting the water carry her away. He ends his version of events by saying that none of this is intentional. Masumi's death was an accident, and that he's extremely remorseful. All seems lost that Masumi's body will ever be recovered.
Her family is devastated. All they wanted this entire time was to bring their daughter home.
With his full confession recorded, police can now proceed to the trial. But those involved with the case still have questions. Is this version of events the truth? Could Masumi's death have been accidental? Or is Langford lying about everything? On March 4th, 2008, nearly a year after Masumi Watanabe's murder, the trial against her killer begins.
Witnesses are typically allowed to read their statements that they've provided prior to trial. So you just have to hope that what they say is exactly what they've said in their earlier statements, and that their recount matches what took place.
Kirk Matthew Langford, Masumi's killer, also gives his version of events, the same that he tells police. He reiterates Masumi's death was not intentional. It was an accident that he took too far.
What really gets him into trouble is that he does not take her to receive medical care. Why? No one knows. He's never been forthcoming with that evidence. And at this point, I guess unfortunately it doesn't matter.
But as the prosecution delves deeper into his statement, they realize Langford has made a fatal flaw. His versions of events is impossible. A crash expert testifies that Masumi would have had severe injuries if she had, in fact, been sideswiped by Langford, more than the scratches on her arms and hands that Langford claims that she sustained.
At one point, when Langford's being interviewed by police, he rolls down his sleeves and actually puts his hands in his pockets. This was probably done to disguise some injuries that would have been apparent to the police on his forearms or hands from a struggle. Langford continued to maintain the entire time that the only reason he had encountered Masumi was that he struck her with his vehicle. The major flaw in that was that there was no damage to the exterior of the vehicle, and her DNA was found on the interior.
It definitely raises additional questions. What happened to her that morning?
The prosecution argues that Langford's treatment of Masumi's body shows lack of empathy, and that he himself is calculating, cold, and narcissistic.
They also mention that his story keeps changing. The first time police question him, he claims not to have known Masumi. But if it was just an accident, why lie about it?
Despite prosecutors' best efforts, Langford sticks with his current story, claiming to have put Masumi's body into the ocean. But the Watanabe family and local authorities do not believe a word of it. Investigators state that if Masumi's body had been placed in the ocean, it would have washed up on shore. Instead, they believe her body is buried somewhere on the island. They spend months searching Oahu for any sign of Masumi, but find nothing. And Langford refuses to say anything more. The verdict is delivered on April 14th, 2008. Kirk Matthew Langford is found guilty of second-degree murder beyond a reasonable doubt.
So there's very little difference between first-degree murder and second-degree murder. In order to be convicted of first-degree murder, a certain set of circumstances have to have taken place, whereas second-degree murder is more of a catch-all. Second-degree murder can also have an element of planning. It's just that first-degree murder has to have a very specific set of circumstances take place in order to be convicted for first-degree murder.
A year later, in April 2009, Langford has his sentence hearing. He is sentenced to 150 years in prison.
This is one of the longest sentences in Hawaiian history.
Here in the state of Hawaii, he's convicted of second-degree murder, which carries a sentence of life in prison. Essentially, he's going to be spending the next 50 years in prison before he's even eligible to ask for parole. That'll be sometime in 2059.
Though her killer is convicted, many questions still linger in the minds of those involved to this day. What exactly happened that April morning? And will anyone ever be able to find Masumi's final resting place?
What did he do with her body? The body's never been discovered. It's never been revealed by him or anyone else. It's problematic. More so for the family than it is for the integrity of the case. One really has to feel for the family in this case.
Only 2 people know the truth of what happened that morning, and one of them has been silenced forever.
It seems like there's a vast gray area between what he says happened and what the evidence leads us to believe. So the truth likely lies somewhere in between. Mr. Langford has refused to cooperate with police. He's really offered only one explanation as to what happened. What we know for sure is that Masumi is gone. Is justice served in the end? That's the question. Ask the family.
Masumi Watanabe was a gentle, sensitive soul, one who expressed herself through her drawings, and one who touched the lives of many without realizing it. Her spirit and memory live on, both in her home of Sado Island, Japan, with her family who continues to mourn her passing, and on the streets of Pupukea, where she had only just begun the journey of finding herself.